This video is mainly for women, but I guess it could be applied to men as well. For years, I've heard about this thing called inner beauty. And maybe as a woman, you're familiar with being told that really what matters is your inner beauty, not your outer beauty. And guys get told something similar. We get told stuff like, just be strong and confident, and then women will be attracted to you. Just be strong and confident. Is that really, how do you do that? In a similar way, women who get told, it's really about your inner beauty, not your outer beauty. Just be inner beautiful. How do you do that? And is that a real thing? Does it really attract men, inner beauty? In my experience, that's a real thing. And it does attract men like flies, or maybe that's not the right metaphor, like bees to a flower. But how do you do it? That's what I want to touch on in this video. And I'll start by telling you a true story about one of the most beautiful women I've ever seen. It happened when I was 17, and I can still see it in my mind's eye, this image of just overwhelming beauty. And yet, what was beautiful was not the woman's physical body. It was, in that moment, her state, her inner state, her presence. And what was happening was, I was living in an ashram, which is like a meditation retreat center where people go to do spiritual practices and to connect deeply with themselves and to learn how to meditate and to connect with God. And there was a woman who lived there, a young woman, just a few years older than me. Her name was Katja, and she was from Australia. And she was cute, and she was a very sweet person, sweet-natured. But I happened to walk past her one day when she was doing a devotional practice called puja in India, or it's called arati. She had a silver tray with a lit candle and a little cup that had incense burning, and she was in front of an altar. She was holding that tray, and she was gently waving it in this circular motion while staring directly at the photograph of this Indian spiritual teacher. And I happened to walk past her as she was in the middle of that. And I tell you right now, you probably can't see it, but the hair is going up on my arms just remembering it, because there was just this moment. To my eyes, she was so filled with devotion as she was staring at this photograph, so filled with purity and love and joy, that when I saw her, it was like it rocked my world. I instantly fell in love with her. Instantly. I mean, I'd already thought she was cute and a very sweet person, but in that moment, seeing her, I fell completely in love. But I didn't really fall in love with her as a body. I fell in love with her presence, with the energy that she was transmitting, you could say. Her inner beauty is what I saw in that moment. It was like seeing something sacred, something divine. And I'm here to tell you that that's a real thing. And it's something that everyone can touch into. Men can touch into it, their own inner being that is already courageous, confident, and strong. And they're going to magnetize women. It doesn't matter as much what their physical appearance is. If they have that inner presence, that's going to draw people in. And the same is true with women. There is a way for women to get in touch with something inside of them that is incredibly attractive and draws people in. Of course, it's not going to draw everybody in. Some people are, really focused on the superficial and the shallow, and they want someone who is physically looks in a certain way, and they're going to only go for that because they're not tuned in to the deeper presence, at least not as you pass them by in a club or some other social setting. They're not going to have a chance to see that deeper thing because they're maybe not tuned into it. But I'm here to tell you that the number of men who would not be attracted to genuine inner beauty and radiance is probably way smaller than you might think. That inner beauty thing is way more powerful than most of us know. And that's because in our typical Western American society, we've lost touch with what inner beauty actually is. That's not where our society is focusing. It's focusing on young, slim bodies that are perfectly proportioned. That's where we keep being told beauty is and happiness is. And we're actually lying to ourselves when we do that. We're actually harming people, especially young people, I think, who grow up getting that message, and then they reach, their 20s, their young adulthood, and they start dating, and some of them get involved in relationships, and some of them even get married, and they have no idea what they're doing. They are completely lost when it comes to what genuine love is, genuine beauty, how to make a relationship work. We are royally screwing over these young people by just misleading them so badly. I just saw it the other day. I go to a certain cafe where I often see this young couple there. They're both very good looking, both probably in their 20s. But what I think I see when I look at them, I think I see the woman, the young woman, kind of being bossy and frustrated with her partner. And her partner seems completely subservient to her and completely passive, almost acts like he's her child. And she acts like a mother who's frustrated. And she probably is frustrated because no one really wants to date a man who acts like a child. And when I saw that couple, I thought, man, that's not going to last long. That's on its last legs. I've been there myself when I was in my 20s and didn't know anything about how to make a relationship work because no one had taught me and I'd never seen it anywhere. I could really relate to this young couple, and I thought, man, they're not going to last long at all. Well, recently I went to that cafe and found out that they had just gotten married. And, my heart broke a little bit because, this is all just in my head, and maybe I'm wrong, and I hope I'm wrong. And at the same time, I can see things sometimes. And I thought, man, I know what that's like. You're in a relationship that doesn't work, and then you get married. Maybe that will fix it. We've all been told that getting married is this peak experience and that it's so important and we should do it. And when we say we want to get married, everyone's like, yeah, let's do it. But we're living in a time in our society when young people don't know what that means. They don't know what marriage really is. They don't know how to do a relationship because we're multiple generations in at this point where our relationships have been falling apart, breaking apart. By the way, that rainbow is coming from a crystal that's hanging in my window. It's not a glitch, although it does look kind of cool. So I'm digressing a little bit. To get back to the inner beauty thing, that was one of the things I learned when I was living in the ashram. This was almost like a monastic setting, like a monastery. There were monks that lived there. Our spiritual teacher was a monk herself, and we were all supposed to be celibate while we lived there. And yet that rule was often broken because, guys, it was so hard not to fall in love with each other because everyone was doing spiritual practices all the time, and that inner radiance was rising up in people and transforming them literally into people that look like divine beings. They looked like gods and goddesses because they had that flame of inner radiance, inner energy, and it was just filling them up and permeating them. And when you see that in someone, you want to get close to them. It's the most attractive thing on the planet. I want to read you a line from one of my favorite books. This is what I consider to be a deserted island book. If I was stuck on a deserted island and I could only have one book there, this would be it. I Am That by Nisargadatta. This thing is falling apart. You can see how many. This is my better copy. My other copy is covered in tape. I've been reading this same book for 30 years now. At one point, Nisargadatta says, "What is beautiful? Whatever is perceived blissfully is beautiful. Bliss is the essence of beauty." Bliss is the essence of beauty. Whatever we perceive blissfully is beautiful. Isn't that true? When you're filled with joy and bliss, when you're in love, and you look at around, everything looks bright and beautiful around you. Or if you perceive someone who is themselves experiencing bliss and love and joy, aren't they beautiful? Aren't they amazingly beautiful? That's a real thing. But we're not going to get it from outside of ourselves. We're not going to find that with clothes or makeup or a workout routine or skincare or the right diet. We can do all of those things and still have a shadow in our eyes. And I see this with Hollywood movie stars who are physically beautiful. They've got trainers and dietitians and fashion advisors, and they can afford all the coolest stuff. But when I look in their eyes, I just see emptiness and sadness and pain. I'm not saying that health and outer beauty isn't important. It is also. It's not like one or the other. But that inner beauty is really, it's potent. I want to tell you another story about an organization that I'm a part of, specifically devoted to doing inner work. Years ago, when I was living in a different state, doing work with that organization, and I'm being a little mysterious because this organization doesn't promote itself publicly. They want to stay under the radar so they don't get attacked. So I'm not going to mention a name there. But they have a very potent style of doing interpersonal growth work. And in this other state, there was a teacher of this style of inner work, who on a physical level was really far off from our American standard of beauty. She was really tall, had a pot belly, her hair seemed to be thinning. She wasn't very symmetrical, you could say. And yet she did work on herself all the time. And this work was focused on removing everything out of the way of connecting with people and seeing the goodness in other people, seeing the brilliance underneath people's confusion. People confused up here, but underneath that, we are all beautiful. We all bring something to this world that's incredibly beautiful and unique and precious. And a lot of us never show that to the world because we get it so confused, we get traumatized, and all of that gift that we brought gets buried. But this woman had been working for years to uncover that gift, to see the goodness in others around her, and to get rid of, and this is the important part, get rid of all the ideas, all the beliefs that she wasn't beautiful. The women in that organization, in that city, had gotten together and really focused on releasing all of their beliefs, specifically to do with any idea that they weren't beautiful. You know, that feeling when you look in the mirror that something's wrong, something's off, it's not right. You know, men have that too to a certain degree, but women get trained to have that way more than men do, I think. Men have insecurities in other places. Although, of course, we can also feel insecure about our looks. But this woman and others in the group had spent considerable amount of time blasting those false beliefs about their attractiveness out of their system so that they didn't, when they met you face to face, there wasn't something in the back of the mind going, oh God, I'm not very attractive. Oh no, there's someone I think is really cute. Oh God, I gotta. All that stuff was gone. And it was just like openness and joyfulness and a willingness to reach out and embrace people with their heart. And I have to say that this woman, who, according to society, was not an attractive woman, was so attractive. It felt so good to be near her. And when she would talk to me, I would just be like, wow, I feel graced. I feel graced by her. And I remember one day her new boyfriend showed up at one of the meetings. And guys, this guy was like a male model. Okay. He was a 10, you know, for a guy, he was a 10. He was a boxer. He was ripped. He was symmetrical. Okay. You look at these two people on the surface and you think there's no way they're together. But when you got to know this woman, it made sense because she was living in her inner beauty. And it didn't just fall into her lap. She had to work at it. She did work at it. She spent probably years working at it. I don't know the specifics. But her and that group of women had specifically focused on that, and they were all magnetizing. Not because they had learned how to fake their appearance or manipulate men with techniques and tricks. That's not how they drew people in. They drew people in by being radiantly authentic from the heart and would reach out to the men, the people in the group, to everyone, the women too, would reach out, extend their heart to people and connect with you and would hold space for you. They were living, I think, a superpower that women especially have. Men can do this too, but I don't think it's the natural way for masculinity to attract people through beauty. I think the way our species is organized into male and female, the dimorphism between the two genders, and the different strengths and weaknesses we have that complement each other, where together we're really strong. If we are in harmony with each other, then we are greater than the sum of our parts. We can both bring a different kind of strength and power to our connection that makes us both stronger and happier. Well, these women had really polished that inside of themselves, that feminine superpower, that quality of inner beauty. They had really figured that out. And it's very sad to me that I think most women in our society don't know what that is anymore. It's been taken away. There is a kind of feminism. It's not all feminism. I think real feminism is important and good. Real feminism is about women being equal in power to men. Not being more powerful than men and subjugating and bullying and dominating men. There's a new kind of feminism that focuses on doing that. And that's not real feminism, in my opinion. That's toxic femininity. But real feminism isn't about women trying to get rid of their femininity and be masculine. and then dominating men with that masculinity. When feminism teaches women to do that, what they're actually doing is teaching women to let go of their built-in superpower that they were born into, that came with their body, came with their female body. And that is to be able to manifest beauty is one of the superpowers that women have, whether their body is symmetrical or not. I'm not saying all women are like that. And I'm not saying all men don't have that, but we could generalize that a majority of women have that and a majority of men don't have that. We have these other things that we do. And there's always going to be outliers. The problem is not the generalization. The problem is when it becomes rigid and we try to force women to be a certain way, an idealized feminine way, and we try to force men into being an idealized masculine way, where we're tough and strong and we never feel our feelings. That damages men, especially the ones who are more sensitive and emotional and feminine. And when we try to force women to be like the homemaker and the child raiser and these traditional roles, if we rigidly force women into those roles, whether they're really like that or not, then we damage women. But that doesn't mean that there isn't really something complementary and natural about femininity and masculinity. It doesn't have to be a battle here, guys. We don't want to have rigidity. We don't want to have divide and conquer according to gender. Racism is divide and conquer according to skin color and ethnicity. The battle of the sexes is another kind of divide and conquer. There's all these different ways that people get divided from each other. Our unity gets broken and we become kind of like enemies or frenemies, and we're always pushing and testing each other. It doesn't have to be like that. There's nothing wrong with femininity being different from masculinity, but we just don't want to start forcing anything on anybody. Bliss is the essence of beauty, Nisargadatta says. Getting in touch with our own inner heart makes us beautiful and attractive. That does take work, but you don't have to do it alone. You find someone to help you. You find a teacher. I've had so many teachers, men and women, beautiful, amazing teachers. I still have multiple teachers in my life. I'll always have teachers. And there's always going to be more for me to learn and more for me to understand. So I recommend finding an excellent teacher. If you want to work on this, if you want to bring out your inner radiance, find someone who can help you with that and go right into that heart of darkness where you don't feel like you're beautiful, you don't feel like you're attractive or have something valuable that other people would want, and you work on that. You get rid of those ideas. Those ideas are false. You do have something radiant and attractive and beautiful inside of you. I promise you that you do. You can't be alive and be a human being and not have that. It could be covered over with confusion, with negative emotions, trauma, but you keep doing the work and getting rid of that stuff, and more that light will rise up in you and it'll bring people in. I hope that wasn't insulting to women. I'm assuming it probably would anger many women, some of the things I've said in there. I'm not going along with the current narrative on gender. I find it to be not completely true. I don't know what it's like to be a woman, but that's a strength as an ally. Not having the same exact kind of mental conditioning and experience as women do means that I can see things that women can't see about women. Just like women can see things about men that men can't see about men. That's the amazing thing about being different from each other is that we can complement each other and we can have an objective viewpoint on each other that we don't have ourselves. So I'm saying all of this with a spirit of love and affection for women. If you watched that video about my past life as a woman, you'll know that, at least to me, I don't think it's a hard barrier between being a man and a woman. I think a lot of you who are women right now, in your next lifetime, you're going to be men. Men, you're going to be women. White people, you're going to be black. Black people, you're going to be white. Our soul mixes it all up each time we come back here. I get it that a lot of you guys don't believe in that, and that's totally fine. I don't think anyone should believe it if they don't want to. But it's been my repeated experience, my direct experience, not something I read in a book, but my direct experience that actually happens. And I think it makes a lot of sense, because one lifetime is not enough to learn everything that this vast universe can teach us. One lifetime is not enough to get it all right. One lifetime is not enough for God to judge us good or bad, send us to hell for eternity or heaven for eternity. That would be a huge mistake. Nobody learns everything they need to know in one lifetime. Not even angels could learn everything that they're ever going to learn in just the span of 100 years. Life is way more vast and mysterious and complex and beautiful and rich than that. The universe is way more vast and rich and beautiful than that. 100 years ain't gonna cut it, guys. That's why we live for millions of years, and we experience life from so many different facets and viewpoints. That's just my belief. You don't have to go there if you don't want to. Anyway, that's my thoughts on inner beauty. It's a real thing.